Alright, this is a video going to show you how to create a simple little Vise assembly. Show you some tips and tricks along the way. This should help you with your portfolio 7. So first I'm going to go ahead and insert my first component. When you're thinking about deciding your first component, think about what part you want to base all of your other items on. Sorry for the pun, but I'm going to import my base here of the Vise, but uh, it's the thing you're gonna actually, assemble everything else to. So if I right click this, you'll see that there's this option for float. When you bring in the first part, everything else is gonna be attached to this part. And so if I were to float it, then I can move it around. But then other parts can move it around. So by default, what SOLIDWORKS does is it has it fixed, and then everything else is going to be mated to that first part. So think about that. If you aren't sure, you could then float it later, then come back and then float other parts and then fix this one. Doesn't matter. But as you see, when I'm selecting it, it says it's fixed. It can't be moved. So just keep that in mind as you're moving forward. All right, so let's go ahead and insert another component. So let's choose this casing part. Bring that in, just drop it somewhere, and then I'm going to start to assemble. And what I like to do is select one part, face, then hold the control key, just kind of a quick way to add relations. And then if you're quick and good about it, you can just kind of stop here and then see, okay, I want to make these two coincident. If you didn't get that, you could have also gone to assembly and then did that manually and then selected two items. Just a little quicker way to do things, okay? So I'm going to select this outer face because I want it to be concentric with, zoom in a little bit here, with control, select that face, brings me up some options, and let's say we make it concentric, right? So after we make I like to kind of rotate around and see, okay, that base part's still fixed, kind of move up and down. Nope, can't do it, just can rotate around this axis. So it's nice for now. Let's keep adding some parts. All right, so what about this headpiece? Go ahead and open that. Give it a sec. If you're not sure where to go, just kind of zoom out a little bit and drop it somewhere so you can actually start selecting faces. Just like relationships in our 2D sketches, just think of it, this is just doing the similar thing with 2D surfaces, or sorry, 3D surfaces in 3D assembly. So yeah, let's say we can make, I don't know, this part, control, select another face. We could make them tangent. We could probably also make them concentric. I'm not really sure which one. Does it really matter? In this case, kind of, because this is actually still tangent to those two faces, but maybe that wasn't what we wanted. We can simply go to this mate grouping in our feature manager and right click it, and we could actually delete it, but for right now I'm going to try to show you something here. So there's this thing called mate alignment. So if I select align versus anti-aligned, I'm not really sure why they named that. You see here that actually now it just positioned it with inside, and if I close my current mating just so I want to make sure I can select things, that flipping that what side of the face to actually be tangent to enabled me to get something that is similar to what I wanted. Could concentric work? I don't know. That's for you to try out. All right. So I have that face selected. Control select the next face I want it to be. Actually, not select that. So I'm gonna hold the control, select that face again. Control key down, and select the bottom surface. What if I made those tangent? Okay. Move it around. That's kind of cool. Still kind of crosses that, the yellow part and the blue part here. We could probably select this and maybe that edge, and then say, well, are they tangent? Do we want to make them concentric? No. So we'll come back to that in a little bit. There's various ways we could do that, but for the sake of this video, at least it's moving like it would in real life. All right, so now let's bring in the other side of the actual vise itself, and now it's called this jaw. Okay, again, this is bringing in. I just like to put it off to the left there for now. All right, now there's a couple different things. You could also continue to select faces like this, and I could, maybe make those coincident or concentric. But if you go to the view, hide show, temporary axis. Now actually I have axis to work with. Just showing you another technique to use that can work for you. So if I select that axis, control, zoom in a little bit, it's hard to see blue on blue. Control that and make those coincident. Now notice the same thing happened again, where maybe it wasn't the direction we intended. So just come in here, float the alignment, there you go. And then as you can imagine, next thing I want to do is that one, and then that one. So a couple different ways to do it. If I select OK, now I can kind of look. So now things are a little bit more interesting because that top part is moving along and this part also. So it's kind of hard to, as you're going along, to see if these additional parts are actually moving in or out because two things are moving. So if you wanted, for right now, just temporarily, you could lock down uh, that axis, control select this axis, and make them coincident. So now this part only rotates about that axis, which makes this movement a little bit easier. I could also lock down. This is something I really like to use, and I would highly recommend that you at least give it a try. Is let's say we want the base part. Don't forget that with all of our parts, we always have our front, top, and right plane, correct? Hopefully you said yes. Okay. All right, so then for the head part, if I open that up, I could kind of hover over the front, top, right. Doesn't really matter, but just for consistency, what if I said I want to make those two parts and make them coincident? Now I can't turn that part, which makes this operation really easy to do. We can always go back to our mates and then delete those. Okay? But for right now, it makes the next operations a little bit easier. So that's what I'm going to do here. Insert some more components. Let's add there's a couple grips. Open one of those. Okay, place it somewhere. You can always select the two faces. Typically, I like to select axes, especially when I have tiny little holes like that. It's just a little bit easier before I actually select the faces. It's just a little bit easier to see the actual things. If you select the faces first, it might cover up some of the visibility of other things you want to make. So I didn't control select, so I can always just go mate them here, and it assumes coincident, and that's what I want. That axis, coincident, boom, done. Now, as I was saying, now it's a little bit easier once those are fixed to mate those two. Just for the sake of time, I'll skip doing the other one, but there's another grip here. Now, we can move this in and out. If I had that other grip, we could use the next thing I'm going to do, which is an advanced mate. So there's this thing called, if I hover it, distance. So if I want to have a controlled distance, I could actually apply that. Now again, typically I want to select the grip faces. In this case, again, for sake of time, it's saying, okay, what is the current distance that I want to have? I could also do a width, but if I'm not really sure, I X out of there, come back in and say, select that face, and then look at my mates. So if I go through and go back to mate. I want, let's see, mechanical, no. Analysis, no. Standard, nothing. This would be a fixed distance. So I was in the right spot. So this is just distance. What's interesting is if I select the two parts right now, I'm honestly just figuring this out as I go. I'm not sure there's distance in the advancement, and there's also this limit distance. That's actually what I want. So that was in that right pop up as I selected those two faces. I'll try to find it later and maybe do a video of where that limit distance is in the actual mate. But for right now, here the first value is like what it currently what the current value would want it to be. So let's just say maybe a value of, well, I don't know, one somewhere in the middle, and then obviously max value, min value. So maybe we want this to be 2. Not really sure. We'll have to play around with it. And then 0 for completely touching itself. Those two parts. It's actually 0. So if I drag this in, I can't go any further because those two surfaces are mated. And then if I drag out, it'll actually stopping here at a distance of 2 inches. You can play around with the actual geometry. It looks like I could probably go further. So I see that face here, the actual jaw is a little bit further in there, but right now I think this looks pretty good. I want to insert a component, this shaft, and open that up. Now, you might be wondering, like, okay, if I didn't have these axes, could I actually mate two surfaces? So if you look at it, you could probably, it seems like, mate two surfaces. It's really difficult, but if you look closely, by control select, those two surfaces should be the two surfaces that would actually mate as far as the thread is. It's the depth, the deepest portion of this cut thread in this part. And then it's the outer distance on that, the outer, like, largest point. So at the very least, we should expect that we could at least do concentric. But when we come in here, we don't see anything. We see just lock components. Lock is just like, well, at least for me, just like fix constraints are in a 2D sketch. It's one of those things I wish SolidWorks would simply just not have in their application. But it's there. Do we want to use it? No. Because it just locks to place, just like stones, locks things in place. It doesn't actually create a functional mate. So obviously I don't want that, so I X out of there. So this again, just like I was doing with the other mates, make these two concentric, or sorry, coincident, the two axes. And boom, there you go. All right, how about these two faces? Made them up, coincident, boom. All right, let's insert, I don't know, let's, this pin thing actually is gonna help us twist. So I'll do an example here of the opposite. Instead of using axes, I will use the outer surfaces and then do concentric. And that works just fine. Then once we start grabbing things now, multiple things are moving, which is kind of fun. So as I'm kind of sliding, well, this connected to the orange piece to the black piece, and that's connected to the red piece, and that's what's actually allowing it to do that movement in. It looks like the part is turning as long, but oh, and then we kind of come outside. So there's a couple things we could do. I'll repeat what I talked about before, which is actually look at, this would be probably just one of the easiest, and for the sake of this video, I just keep things short. I could look at, again, I like to remind you that we always have that front, top, and right. So from the pin's right plane, I either want to look at the shaft and see what plane I could mate that to. For consistency, select those two, make those coincident. So now I can't slide, I can still rotate it. It's a little bit more difficult for SOLIDWORKS to figure out, but at least this part is not going to be able to slide out. Okay, so that's one easy way. There's a few other ways we can talk about that in class, um, but for now, that's actually locked in place. Um, One last component. Let's add a little wheel here. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Thank you. Not you. Thanks, SolidWorks. Um, so um, I'm gonna go with the surface here, and you might be wondering, like, what's this cosmetic thread? Well, that cosmetic thread. Let's see if it allows us to mate surface to surface. So it does. So the cosmetic surface, just a texture that's applied to the surface to give it that. It doesn't actually affect the size, which allows to do concentric. And we say, okay. And then if you want, we could do a limit size between, one of these faces and this face. So we could allow it to turn. But for the simple purposes of this video, I'll do that face and then see if we can mate it to this face. And sure enough, it says tangent to, and that works. All right, I can still turn it, and then we can still see how that turns. But anyway, that's all I have. So hopefully that's all helpful.